From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and Akashvani, this is Stumped.
Hello, I'm Alison Mitchell and welcome to Stumped. With me from Sydney for the ABC is Jim Maxwell and Charu Sharma is with us from Bangalore for Akashvani. Now, it was the T20 World Cup match with the biggest build-up of them all, an on-off saga that at one point looked like it might threaten cricket's entire ecosystem. That is until Pakistan relented on their original decision to boycott their fixture against India. And in the end, there were no handshakes or really any interaction between the players, and India's men continued their recent dominance with a comfortable 61-run victory. Now, given all of that, Michael Atherton wrote in the London Times this week that India versus Pakistan has become, quotes, a miserable spectacle. Now, Jim and Charu, what do you reckon to that? Has it become a miserable spectacle, given everything?
Well, miserable might be taking it a step too far, but I can understand the sentiment because there's so much hype and there's so much build-up and uncertainty surrounding it. So much news and so many stories. And then, of course, if you end up with a damp squib, you wonder what it was all about. I think the hype is now overtaking the contest between the two, and the rest of the world is being unwittingly, well, or perhaps willingly because of the media, drawn into this whole drama. And there's much more drama now than contest. So I can understand what Michael Atherton might have gone through, but possibly not miserable, not yet anyway.
Well, Pakistan, I think the record's 8-1 India, isn't it, in the more recent T20s they've played. So as a contest, it's not what it was when Javed Miandad and the rest of them were playing in those occasional test matches, certainly against India. We'd like to see that happen again, but unfortunately Pakistan have lost the plot in terms of administration. Even the playing of the game is pretty ordinary at the moment, very mediocre. So I suppose the other side of it is the broadcast politics of something like this T20 World Cup, and that's where they're saying the money is going to come from having that game. So just as well they've had it, but I don't think they'll be having it again in the Super 8s. We'll see what happens. But I think if Pakistan would be down at 6, 7, 8 in the list at the moment.
Given what we know about the economic reality of the fixture and what had to go into making it happen, if it is becoming a miserable spectacle, at least being very one-sided on the field, it's something of a necessary miserable spectacle because it does bankroll the game and it doesn't diminish the number of eyeballs that are still drawn to it, you know, political hype or non-political hype. But I went on social media just before the match to ask just how fans of both India and Pakistan were feeling given, you know, everything that had happened in the build-up. And the reaction was kind of mixed. I'll read you out just a couple of the responses. Pravesh said, yes, it has diminished a bit, but more to do with Pakistan not being as good or as competitive as they used to be. It's become more one-sided, which is never fun. Recent events have made it more tiresome, in a sense, and that was reflected a little bit in what a few other people said as well. Amitava says India-Pakistan contests were really competitive in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. Last 10 years it has been one-sided. For me, these days, it's just like any other game and the match has no bearing on the World Cup. Both teams go through to Super 8s. Sam Matodra said it shouldn't happen. Just place India and Pakistan in separate groups next time. Well, that kind of comes back to the broadcasting and the money and the advertising and the eyeballs, doesn't it? Rahul says politics have made this game a mess. Shame on us, and points out that he's Indian. Adil said the most geopolitically overhyped match of the tournament, which is difficult to disagree in. And Praful, India versus USA was more interesting than Sunday's match, which is kind of true as well. There's been so many incredible performances by the associates. But, I mean, Charu, people were still watching though, weren't they? I mean, in India, despite all of this, and there might be a little bit of, should we say, just a little bit of dulling of the senses in some regards, but it didn't stop people tuning in.
Well, yes, I think there's a very small percentage that get dulled, but the largest number is still very invested in terms of time, effort, energy into watching an India-Pakistan match. It does create a lot of noise, and of course this time a lot more because of the uncertainty. But at any tournament, anywhere, the India-Pakistan match is guaranteed to be a sellout, and that is the level of interest that still exists for various reasons. The rivalry itself is not what it was, but I think due to a much larger set of reasons, it's still a very attractive watch because for starters, you've got 2 billion people potentially viewing the match or having interest in the match. That's just a huge number, wherever, whenever. There's so much similarity between the two and yet so many differences. It's almost like playing against our own, but people who've gone in different directions, they come back on the cricket field, they play. In the past, too, there was, and these guys, by the way, you read out some of those comments, are not wrong at all. Most of them have made some, very understandable comment. I think Amitabh was quite correct that from, in fact, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, it was not even so even. Pakistan was possibly ahead, and India were the underdogs. And then, of course, things have changed since the new millennium completely to dull the contest, but not the spectacle.
Yeah, although I wonder, for a neutral watching it, and you hope to watch for the spectacle of the match, Jim, do you find, do you think the neutrals are perhaps tuning in with almost a bit of a macabre sense of watching it for some controversial moments, as opposed to tuning in for a brilliant cricketing spectacle? Will they shake hands? Will they not? This kind of thing.
Oh, yes, I suppose so. I think we're kind of used to that for the time being, and until someone pushes out the olive branch or whatever. Oh, actually, following it from afar, and most of the games are on live in Australia overnight, so you tend to look at the highlights the next day. But I've noticed pretty good crowds for matches involving the so-called minnows, and they've performed above expectation, maybe because a lot of their players are playing franchise T20 cricket, and they've got more experience than their record would suggest. I think it's worked pretty well across the board, but it's disappointing to have this aspect of the tournament being so downgraded. But what we have seen has been worthwhile, beginning with, as you mentioned, the United States giving India a bit of a touch-up before they lost to them in the opening game. And as we was talking about last week, nothing could have been more exciting than that match between South Africa and Afghanistan, which went to a second super over. So I think it's held up pretty well. And remember that for a lot of people, their diet of international cricket is hard to find in certain parts of the world because Amazon Prime have got the rights and it's not on the normal channel. So that's another issue as well. But I noticed there were still 67 million people at the end of that Afghanistan-South Africa game who were watching. That sounds pretty good to me.
Oh, there's been so many compelling stories, not least, Jim, and we have to talk about this. Zimbabwe beating Australia. I mean, what a performance by Zimbabwe, and taking nothing away from them. And Australia have not played like the number 2 ranked team in the world as they were when they came into this tournament. But Zimbabwe were magnificent. But in a couple of months, you've seen Australia go from, trouncing England in the Ashes to, yes, albeit with some different players, but failing to get through phase 1 of this tournament. To what degree are alarm bells ringing in Australia now? I see overnight that a review is being launched, which so often happens when a team fails to, a big team like Australia will fail to get through to the second round like this.
We've had the whole lot. Played poorly, had injuries, people who should have done better, like Cameron Green as an example, haven't. It's really been just a combination of factors, but that's not to take anything away from Sri Lanka and Nissanka's innings the other day to knock Australia off, following the Zimbabwe performance. And every now and then we do have a hiccup against Zimbabwe. I was there at Trent Bridge in 1983 when a bloke called Duncan Fletcher played for Zimbabwe in that famous win over the Australians. So we love an upset, don't we? Even if it's our team that's getting clobbered. But no, Australia have had a bad tournament. And if you look at their overall record in this T20, they've won once, been runner-up on another occasion, and this is only, I think, the second time they haven't got through to the next round. And Zimbabwe did it to them last time.
I think Australia need to care about the T20 World Cup because it is the driving force for the expansion of the game worldwide. And this tournament in particular, I think really has been so uplifting because of the variety of stories that we've seen. And I just wondered, Jim and Cherry, like if you had to pick out something that's maybe your favourite moment or match of the tournament, seeing Blessing Mazarabani being the star for Zimbabwe against Australia, Italy and the joy that we saw when they won their first ever World Cup match, Nepal getting their first win in 12 years over Scotland. I really got drawn into that match. It was a game of no consequence for the qualification in the tournament, but there was so much joy amongst the Nepalese fans, and that for me, it just sort of encapsulated, why this T20 World Cup is so refreshing. It was a match that fluctuated so much, and gosh, the Monica the Cardigan kids certainly lived up to their name again. Poor old Stuart Law, the coach, was going through all the roller coaster of emotions in the dugout. But what might you two pick out as perhaps, Cherry, I've come to you for, a favourite, most uplifting moment?
Well, I certainly have a lot of heart and feel for Nepal cricket, having been there to do some cricket. And what a story it would have been had they just got those 4 runs more against England. That would have been the biggest story. And they were so close against a country that's played cricket for 300 years that, oh my goodness. But failing that was a big problem for them. But of course, winning against Scotland and the kind of aggression they won with was magnificent. Yet may I single out Yuvraj Samra from Canada. His 100 in only, 65 against New Zealand. That takes a lot of getting. They don't play that much cricket at all. And the additional story that he was named after Yuvraj Singh, which is a wonderful little angle to the whole story. But getting 100 against New Zealand, terrific side. They're in the Super 8s and Yuvraj comes. Of course, they lost the match. But whenever, it takes a lot to get 100 in a T20. And Yuvraj, I think that performance was just second to none.
Youngest ever cricketer to hit 100 in a men's World Cup match, ODI or T20.
Oh, Australia's win over Ireland was the highlight of the tournament. No doubt about it.
We'll let you have that. They've got to take something away from the World Cup, haven't they, the Aussies? Well, that's it for Stumped for this week. Thanks for listening and for watching. Jim and Cherry, it's been fun as always. So keep enjoying the T20 World Cup. We'll say bye for now.